Hello, valuetainment sources and their cells are being used to sense for a breaching method. They have sense and sensibilities, for example, to use Jane Austen's phrase, for what they are roles preventing, as people, in other words, preventing, I've been asking for a long time. As clues, I haven't asked them personally to respond, but I'm pretty sure they won't. The people I did, Fox, Fox News has collusions with Channel 3 news sources and with their own and with the intelligence next to their location, including interbranch family members and their roles as adults and kids, as their collusions with worse than criminal incompetence at all ages and natures of campuses, also with names next to them, also as their roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with his co-defendants like a Thaddeus Grabowski, involved with a bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News, also with a Adam Domain and a Mike Domain, and they're educators. I never saw them on my street in my life. A bunch of people have roles with predicate acts on my street with them from other areas since I was a kid, as people involved with predicate acts with facts into databases at and next to each of the campuses I went to, too, putting fake transcripts roles. WFSB put me in completely fake conversations with themselves and with others and with doctors as a kid, now as an adult. There's a Leahy family that put fake transcripts through the mail. I can't get a response from the Hartford Hospital. I've been telling you guys. I warned. In other words, they're still involved with more abuses of the kids at and between the campuses, even if the kids move to another town, or when they go to campuses in other states, or if they go to in-state. Central Connecticut State University, since I was a kid, they're increasingly involved with predicate acts with fax methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and then to cover that up the same. Then they painted themselves in corners. They attached me to fake conversations with Wethersfield police when I was a kid, and now as an adult too. The people that they did that personally, professionally, criminally involved with, simultaneously they recorded intercities collusions with all kinds of police forms and police departments and retired police chiefs from Wethersfield and their intimate ties, and their extended family members, also involved with extended family members of foreign and domestic police and police forms and types of jobs with such, changing and faking what people say on a mass scale while tactically delusions are roles self-valued with our founders' communications being and having been replaced to us, even though nature itself shows us that, and we have it declassified. Our founders communicated for us to discern how people would be using their words, leaving out how they declassified, how they did not have free speech, and why they did not have free speech, how they would pretend that's debatable by using things that are not debatable, pretended debatable, and things that are not debatable, pretended debatable. Black pupils. Yeah. It is not our species that invented black pupils, white survive, because it's not the other species bodies that invented it. Why and how all the different species bodies have quality aspects of nature distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous, but also per that showing us its body to an extent, that which is further hyper simultaneous, and it's showing us the rest of its identity of relationship to itself, too, with the parts of itself that come with means to discern its individual self. That's self-binding, the extent of time that's not even here yet, the value of the seasons too that are not even here yet. We are able to see that here now, and the past that is gone. We are able to discern it as increasing here value here now to an extent, and with what is active here now, we are able to discern its value to an extent. But our appreciation of values have been through abridged systems. Not honesty spoke for why and how. There's poverty in suburbs, let alone in New York City, let alone, in other words, and suburban slash urban, as Hartford is self described, and with the suburbs next to it, at the founding locations, communicating and having communicated for themselves, having been communicating other than our founders communicated to have communicated for those places and for those cells, and about the human fact, human nature breaching method that didn't even allow our founders free speech. And James Madison, we were directed to understand them as plural, as him singular, and his plan. And then they went and got George Washington counter extorted, but self valued counter extortion because there was no means to get even slavery unentrenched. No one wanted rolls with that. They had it sickly distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies entrenched and operated through people, tortured, extorted, in fact, human nature, therefore physically enslaved to other ways. The operators of names A through Z of countries are locations, areas, and states that are hyper foreign, a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise. I am not a lawyer, but this is more probable and practical and demonstrably what nature is showing us. It forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded the only people who operate those names to use those natures of might and power that come through unity and independence that was being challenged, ulterior from how nature wanted and needs it not to be challenged. And nature was demonstrating that people had to counter things syntactically, therefore physically. But they didn't know how to defend themselves properly because the breaching method was doing that specifically to have them counter wrong. And then to have that countered wrong. Or correctly, but correctly in a way leaving itself and the whole problem out. All the other problems were created by it, but it was through other people. And it knew that simultaneously, in defenses of that, simultaneously more and more they would be taken from the identity of sophistication that is needed to be maintained for hyperstability. And to check all natures of stability and make sure they are hyperstability and not just criminal insidious natures of stability, like criminal insidious natures of peace that have remained. Not one has changed. Please get me off the fake conversations with Channel 3 News, WFSB, about the World Trade Center attack, and get the interbranch onto paper, one name and sequence regarding them. They have rules with other natures of organized crimes and a whole methods of them. I'm not even a lawyer. The intelligence community has a bunch of people involved with the name Christopher Walters and people with the name Spada involved with phone companies that sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm they influenced them also to collusion with the people on my street involved with the confessions of the police, also pretended other, while they're not getting into paper since I was a kid. And this older police brother, I never had a word of conversation with him. He pretended I had a sentence with him at the Wethersfield police station. And his roles also. And he stole a sentence I said and put on the thing. And it's not even real. In other words, they're sequence shifting and putting identity theft, frauds, and slanders and collusion /us also with their educators. Wethersfield High School, including a principal upskirt nature, and ones years ago. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a whole bunch of people tied to Eric Mendez and his classmates that I didn't even have classes with. They have roles with probate court judges and superior court judges and prosecutors and victims advocates with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists too. These are also people that have my Saudi friend forced to collusions with them, also with people named Tomorrow, through people named Scalora, and Tomorrow and Cololo said that, and Cololo is one of the names near me, involved with a Phil Cololo, increasingly involved with a Bob Chase at Whiting Forensics, also with others, like on the Facebook page of the principal Upskirt Natures campus, with a Joshua Julian, with some black KKK theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, etc. Putting fake things, fake ties, fake natures ties to me, also with WTNH sources and educators intercities, who also, like there's an educator with the name O'Neill in West Hartford, who has a family in Wethersfield, involved with Whiting Forensics, with sexual medical offenders, with state police families interstates, and with the F.B.I., with the same house /S, involved with a bunch of police departments and people tied to them, involved with home break-ins when I was a kid, and now as an adult. It's also fire departments refusing to identify themselves and their family members increasingly involved. They're forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading people to speak behind others because on a mass scale, since they were kids, they were little fakes, four fakes. In other words, uses of the right to lie on a mass scale. That's how they define the law. So New Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, and the Connecticut District Court, with people with the Connecticut District Court, they've been putting predicate acts of facts, fake things in databases as collusions with all natures of crime scenes, including with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forced, and self-valued roles with the kids abused years later, where they're just punks with predicate act with other people's names that are repeating fake things. They never had right to they came through sick campuses, A through Z, the names of the people, the sciences. They stand the bridge. They cannot understand how to defend the Constitution unabridged without blaming on other things, others, ourselves. The hyperforeign abridgment that never left. That and our founders behind James Madison's plan caused the Civil War. That no one wanted roles with slavery, North and South. They were both entrenched with it. Then they were forced to fight about it as fakes, and still you guys are collusions replacing James Madison's method of counter extortion, the force sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly entrenched, internationally monitored conversations that were timed collusions with what witch trials about. Which there's a witch trials place right next to the right next to Webb House with no law before it. Then they changed the name to the Webb Stevens Museum. And then and now still, since founding, pounding drums. See president / chief. See that which we could discern as little kids. It was a breaching method with differences. Racketeering worse than war crimes. And with syntax, therefore physics, and with sequence shifts relative to it. So Connecticut's news locations in their sources had and have also with the intelligence next to them. They're forcing that to be brought up because it's their use of location /s they also brought up as their roles with the other countries involved, like the Saudi people from Saudi Arabia and America and lawyers of the victims of the World Trade Center attack. There are proofs that they have collusion /s with the evidence is racketeering, the predicate acts of facts methods, of torture methods, extortion method, and slavery method. Factory nature slavery, therefore physical slavery. See again what really and how really the suburbs are manifest, let alone New York City. See the counters to they have all kinds of organized crimes with medicines and with delusions at the same time. They have criminally foreign influence, fact, tribute nature, quality aspects in nature that as criminal insidious nature, the names of the people, the sciences. I am not a lawyer, thank God. So get them off the Epstein name and that, in other words. A whole bunch of people tied to a Ray Claw and a Mike Roberts have been planting it. One girl took a picture of me. They have roles with people from Korea, a whole bunch of people with psychiatry, and a whole bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University that trained, right through the careers of state police. They were involved criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, all kinds of natures of organized crime. The difference of their guilt or of overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and or the roles on off the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices in Wethersfield and the state corrections offices at Wethersfield / Harper Lake right there, the town line. These are people with the town lines with the police chief Cintron, also with a family named Cintron in Puerto Rico, tied to a Pito Cardona. I never saw him in the gym. I could beat a Pito Cardona. I fought Paul Spatafora, who won the title against Pito Cardona. I'm saying that too because they have aggression involved and they have rape threats involved with some of the people with New Britain Superior Court with their Facebook page involved with proven child abusers, leaders, and kids. You have some real fake tough guys planting fake with wire crime acts and methods, and acting tied to their roles with those predicate acts with facts methods, putting fake things in databases. There's a Judge Kelly and a Judge Smith, and there are a whole bunch of other judges I don't know the names of. They're the ones with whiting forensics increasingly involved with crime scenes and sexual medical offenders and people involved with mayors, involved with the interbranch forging and switching names, refusing to identify themselves legitimately every year. I've been asking you guys since before the World Trade Center attack to get them on paper. These are interbranch refusing to identify themselves legitimately. One of the people involved is former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members and their neighbors of them and their kids of one, and the kid of one, who also has roles with a girl was a girl. Dawn LaConch has roles with Heather Hansen, with her boyfriend, one of her boyfriends, and the other ones I don't know who it was. It was someone else. I don't know if it was her boyfriend or not. With the home break-ins, relative, and untimely deaths, years apart, and they had the same house/S involved. These are people increasingly planting evidences at locations and online. One with a Ray Cololo, even if that wasn't really Ray Cololo, and a Joshua Julian, even if that wasn't really Joshua Julian. The FBI has them with the Facebook page of a principal child abuser who has more medical and sexual offenders of kids and have their own kids involved with that on Facebook. Facebook has personally and professionally, they've been using their Facebook to hide live progressions. God knows what they have on there too. So my page, I didn't get to finish explaining it because they were still confessing and demonstrating, recording things and pretending to record. They have criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw readings of statutes and precedents and exceptions where it appears not, and relative to the value of what is said online or not, or what is spoken like right through video. So they have sequence shifts, and they're refusing to identify themselves legitimately at courts. No, that and through time that shows way worse too is involved with them. In other words, way worse than tens of thousands of pictures of little girls, whatever they have reported with this Epstein and the people that are involved with the world, the only people allowed to report on and be with the communications at the White House. In other words, you guys don't even have James Madison's plan understood. You won't even allow people to be honest about George Washington's extortion while you have delusions too. So your natures are sick. You have forced people to get angry. So you can tell, oh, he didn't stay calm. You're nuts with calm definitions and aggression. You need to get them on paper. That's why you need to get on paper, because we have more guns problems and medicines and drugs crimes with the kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the same time, witch trial stuff. These same ones, a whole bunch of people tied to a Leahy family that fake conversations with me too at Harvard Hospital. Involved with this, a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital involved with Parks and Recreation and people that run car dealerships and people that work for them and their family members and the differences of their guilt at people as their roles with Harvard Hospital with their patients and criminals run in, including if they're undercover. They're planting fake and change transcripts and their collusion/S with the same house/S increasingly. That's why they can't get on paper. They already did way, in other words, what's actually recorded, in other words, worse than criminal incompetence spoke for Hartford, Connecticut, for the suburbs, for the founding locations in the suburbs, let alone for their suburban/urban, gets a little more complicated than the straight up urban to take you and keep you all shock and awe, encountering its way. Keep other things, others ourselves blamed until that's real and real more and more. You guys can't even, you have the suburbs manifest in America to Russia to Ukraine. The colonists north and south, where they both were forced to roles with slavery before America's founders were born, they wanted to build better and safer. They wanted to have an identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself that wouldn't cause negative value nature progressions, acts in nature, and needs to self-value with the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts in nature is more and more. The self-value rules of the only means for that being and having been criminal and ceaseless nature is a means to cause positive value nature progression, action nature. In other words, all kinds of wire crime acts and methods. People say, oh, that's not my job. I have to rely on someone. In other words, that's why get them on paper. They have all digital crime methods recorded with the FBI and the other agencies. You guys, we're going to go into the CIA and we're going to go directly into the other countries involved with these courts, family members, and their roles next to Trinity College and CCSU with the people planting evidence on my street because you had to hide life progressions because you've been sticking predicate acts with facts, collusion/S with the court's databases and with the campus ones and with the names next to it because the difference of that, or driving by, the difference of that was is exploited too. These are names on all sides of criminal and civil cases in Connecticut and interstates, and the courts at the same time. The police forms, their sources, the conjunctions to them, all natures of politicians. There's a woman named Ruth, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people involved with criminal enterprises, improving child abusers, leaders, and kids first force, as people tied to mayors and their intimate ties and family members and people and other natures of conjunctions to them. They're involved with the Connecticut Department of Education, also with the ones with more World Trade Center predicate acts and roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crimes there, including methods of them, including private organized criminal enterprises originally and still. Our founders communicated other than you guys will allow to have the board discern. In other words, not one has learned. Please follow mandatory law. Get me off the fake conversations with the news to begin with and with the courts and the police. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Otherwise, we're going to go into their family members too, and they brought it up, and their rules with the conjunctions all along Route 3 and conjunctions to it, like the state judicial branch offices. Too, they have time collusion/S with relative body dumping spots and names next to it, and how that those spots and those names next to it were brought up right when they're planting a whole bunch of people tied to the community center and the sides of it, tied to a Cololo and a DeMar, one's named DeMar, with foreign and domestic police forms. Rules of all kinds of natures of organized crimes with databases and with their educators too. Watch what I caught their educators doing. You.